I'm going to his apartment to watch a movie. She announced about her male best friend at 11 p.m. Have fun, I said. Packed my stuff while she was watching movies. She got back at 4 a.m. to an empty apartment and a note. Hope the movie was worth it. The sequel's called Moving Out. Hey viewers, before we move on to the video, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you want to see more stories like this. Thanks. The smell of garlic and thyme filled the apartment, a scent I'd come to associate with peace. It was a Tuesday, and Tuesdays were our night. Not officially, not written in some couple's contract, but an unspoken rule that had held for 2 years. After the chaos of Mondays, we'd reconnect. I'd cook, she'd choose the movie, and we'd forget the world outside existed. I was stirring the creamy mushroom sauce for the chicken, the radio playing softly in the background, when Sarah got home. The door didn't open with its usual tired sigh followed by her kicking off her heels. It swung open, and she breezed in, a whirlwind of energy that felt out of place in our Tuesday night sanctuary. Hey you, I said, leaning in for a kiss. She offered her cheek, already scrolling through her phone. Hey, smells good. Almost ready. Just letting the sauce reduce. I watched her. She was still in her work clothes, a sharp blazer and slacks, but she'd reapplied her lipstick. The deep red one. The one she usually saved for weekends or special occasions. Great, great, she said, not looking up from her screen. A smile played on her lips. Good day? I asked, trying to tap into her mood. Yeah, actually. Really good. She finally put her phone down and looked at me, her eyes bright. Jake finally closed that big marketing deal he's been talking about. The one with the sports drink brand. It's huge for him. Oh, Jake. The name was like a drop of ink in clear water, clouding the atmosphere. Jake was her best friend. A title that had felt benign a year ago, but had since grown sharp edges. He was a freelance marketing consultant, all manicured spontaneity and curated adventures. His life, as presented on social media, was a highlight reel of rooftop bars, impromptu road trips, and deep, profound conversations about the universe. I was an architectural drafter. My world was measured in lines, scales, and the quiet satisfaction of a foundation that wouldn't crack. Lately, Sarah seemed to see that not as stability, but as a cage. That's great for him, I said, my voice neutral. I turned back to the stove, giving the sauce a more vigorous stir than it needed. He's celebrating tonight, she continued, her tone casual in a way that was anything but. He just got that insane new surround sound system. The one that cost more than my car. He says watching a movie on it is a religious experience. A cold knot began to form in my stomach. I focused on the simmering sauce, the steady bubble of it a counterpoint to the sudden static in my head. We can watch something with great sound here, I offered, gesturing with the spoon to our perfectly good, year-old soundbar. That action movie you wanted to see is streaming. She laughed, a light, airy sound that didn't reach her eyes. Oh, Alex. It's not the same. This is about the full immersion. Jake's building a home theater. It's his passion project. I remembered my own passion project, building us this home. The late nights I'd spent assembling furniture, painting walls, mounting shelves for her book collection. It had been our project. Now, it was just my literal, boring apartment. The memory flashed, vivid and painful. Us, 6 months ago, painting the bedroom. She had a smudge of blue on her nose, and we'd ended up in a playful paint fight, collapsing on the drop cloth in a heap of laughter. I love building a life with you, she'd said, her head on my chest. The words now felt like they belonged to another person. So, you're going over there? I asked, my back still to her. Yeah. He's ordering takeout from that fancy Thai place, and we're gonna do a double feature. Probably be an all-nighter. She said it with a giddy excitement I hadn't inspired in months. I finally turned around. The clock on the microwave glowed 10:45 p.m. It's 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, Sarah. You have a board meeting at 9 a.m. tomorrow. Her face tightened. The excitement vanished, replaced by a familiar mask of exasperation. Don't be such a drag. It's just a movie. Jake knows how to have fun. He lives in the moment. Unlike you, always worried about schedules and tomorrow. The words landed like a series of small, precise cuts. A drag. Lives in the moment. Unlike you. They weren't new, but the context gave them a fresh, brutal sharpness. She was choosing a movie with him over our night, over her sleep, over me. and she was framing my concern as a character flaw. I looked at her, at the defensive set of her jaw, the impatient tap of her foot. I saw the girlfriend I'd loved, the one I'd planned a future with, receding behind a stranger who valued immersion over intimacy. The cold knot in my stomach melted, replaced by a clear, chilling certainty. This wasn't about a movie. This was the final scene of a play I hadn't realized was ending. The silence in the kitchen was heavy, broken only by the frantic bubbling of the sauce. I reached over and turned off the burner. The sudden quiet was deafening. All the arguments I could have made flashed through my mind. I made you dinner. It's our night. This is disrespectful. He's not just your friend, and you know it. I could have yelled. I could have begged. I could have listed every time Jake had coincidentally needed her when we had plans, every backhanded compliment she'd made about my safe job, every time I'd bitten my tongue to keep the peace. But looking at her now, poised to walk out that door, I saw the truth. Any reaction, anger, hurt, pleading, would just be more drama for her to dissect with Jake later. He was so insecure, you wouldn't believe it. So controlling. I would become the villain in their story no matter what I did. So, I chose not to play. I took a slow, quiet breath, the kind you take before stepping off a high dive. The hurt and anger were there, a roaring fire in my chest, but I smothered them. I let the clarity wash over me, cold and final. I looked her directly in the eyes, my expression unreadable, my voice unnaturally calm. Okay, I said. Have fun. Her smug confidence flickered and died. She'd been braced for a fight, ready to counter my insecurity with her enlightened perspective. My serene acceptance was a void she hadn't anticipated. It threw her completely off script. Wait, what? She stammered, her brow furrowed in confusion. That's it. No argument. No guilt trip. I simply shrugged, a small, non-committal gesture. You're an adult. You can make your own choices. The confusion on her face curdled into annoyance. My calm was a mirror, and she didn't like what she saw reflected back. Her own actions, stripped of the dramatic justification she'd prepared. Fine, she snapped, grabbing her purse from the counter. I will. I'll see you whenever. She turned and walked out. The door didn't slam. It closed with a soft, decisive click that echoed in the silent, sauce-scented apartment. It was the sound of a chapter ending. I stood there for a full minute, just listening to the silence. Then I moved. I walked to the stove, picked up the pot of mushroom sauce, and carried it to the sink. I didn't look at it. I didn't taste it. I turned on the disposal and watched 2 hours of care and anticipation get ground into nothingness. It was oddly cathartic. Then, I went to the hall closet and pulled out my large, wheeled duffel bag, the one we used for weekend trips to the cabin. I unzipped it on the bed, the sound loud in the quiet room. The game was over, and it was time to collect my pieces and leave the board. The silence in the apartment was no longer empty. It was full of purpose. I moved with a methodical calm I didn't know I possessed. There was no rage, no frantic energy, just a steady, unwavering resolve. I started with the essentials. Passport, birth certificate, the folder of important documents I kept in a locked box at the back of the closet. Then, my laptop, my backup hard drives, the small fireproof safe with my grandfather's watch. These were the anchors of my life, and they went into the duffel bag first. Next, I moved to the bedroom. I didn't empty the closet. I didn't want a single thread of hers. I took my 3 best suits, the dress shirts, my jeans, and the sweaters I actually wore. I left the ugly Christmas sweater she'd bought me as a joke and the ties she'd picked out that I never liked. From the bathroom, I took my electric razor, my toothbrush, my cologne. I left the couple's skincare regimen she'd insisted we start, the bottles standing side by side like a monument to a failed experiment. As I packed, my mind wasn't a torrent of painful memories. Instead, it was a cold, clear ledger. I thought of the time I'd taken a second job for 6 months to help pay off her student loans, giving up my Saturday morning basketball games with friends. I thought of the way I'd learned to make her favorite lasagna from scratch, just to see her smile after a bad day. I thought of the countless times I'd muted my own desires, for a quieter vacation, for a less expensive couch, for a night in, to accommodate the vibrant, spontaneous life she claimed to want. Each sacrifice, once a testament of love, now felt like a withdrawal from a bank account I hadn't realized was empty. And her trip to Jake's tonight was the final, irreversible overdraft. I opened my nightstand drawer. There, next to a half-empty pack of gum, was the small, velvet box. I hadn't even picked it out yet. I'd just put a down payment on it at the jeweler's a month ago. I'd been saving for the perfect stone. I looked at the box for a long moment, then picked it up. It wasn't a symbol of love anymore. It was a receipt for my own blindness. I placed it carefully in the duffel bag. I'd return it tomorrow and get my money back. The last thing I packed was from the living room, a framed photo of my parents and me at my college graduation. It was the only personal photo I'd brought into this shared space. Everything else was of us, or of her. I left those. It took me less than an hour to pack my car. 2 duffel bags, a suitcase, and 2 boxes of books and personal effects. The apartment looked almost untouched. I hadn't made a mess. I hadn't taken anything that was hers or ours. I was erasing myself, cleanly and completely. I stood in the kitchen one last time. The note. I found a pen and a pad of paper we used for grocery lists. I didn't need to craft a long, eloquent letter. She wouldn't understand it anyway. The truth was in the empty closet spaces and the silent apartment, not in my words. I wrote simply, my handwriting steady. Hope the movie was worth it. The sequel's called Moving Out. I didn't sign it. She would know who it was from. I propped it against the now-cold pot on the stove, a final, ironic centerpiece to the uneaten dinner. I walked out, pulling the door shut behind me. The lock engaged with a soft, final thud. I didn't look back. As I drove away from the curb, I didn't feel a crushing wave of sadness. I felt light, unburdened. The weight of her constant, subtle disapproval was gone. The anxiety of competing with a ghost named Jake was gone. In their place was the quiet hum of the engine and the open road ahead. I was free. The first few days were a study in silence. I stayed with my buddy, Dave, crashing on his couch. He didn't ask many questions when I showed up at 2 a.m. with my car full of my life. "You good, man?" he'd asked, his face etched with concern. "I will be," I'd said, and that was that. He was a good friend. He gave me space. I called my landlord first thing in the morning, explained the situation in vague terms, and paid a penalty to break the lease. I transferred my half of the rent and utilities for the final month into our shared account, a clean, financial severance. I wasn't going to leave her in a lurch, but I also wasn't going to be responsible for her anymore. Then, I blocked her number, and her email, and her social media accounts. It wasn't an act of anger, but of self-preservation. I knew the storm was coming, and I had no intention of being caught in the rain. The storm arrived, as predicted, through indirect channels. My phone buzzed with a number I didn't recognize. I let it go to voicemail. "Alex? It's me. Where are you? The apartment is empty. This isn't funny. Call me back." Her voice was a mix of confusion and irritation. I deleted it. An hour later, another unknown number. This one was sharper. "Okay, I get it, you're mad. You're making a point. Fine. You've made it. Now can you please call me so we can act like adults?" Jake said this is really immature, by the way. I almost smiled. Of course Jake had an opinion. I deleted that one too. The reports started trickling in from Dave, who was still connected to the same social circles. "So, heard from Mike," Dave said cautiously over pizza that night. He said Sarah's been blowing up the group chat. "She's saying you had a nervous breakdown and just disappeared. That you're being really unstable." I took a bite of pizza. "Okay. She's telling people you abandoned her because you were jealous of her friend. She's playing the victim, hard." I shrugged. "Let her." The real karma began a week later. Dave, who had been my silent source of intel, came into the living room with a look of grim satisfaction on his face. "So, the Jake situation, it's unfolding." I looked up from my laptop. "Yeah. Mike saw them at a bar last night. He said it was tense." Apparently, Jake's all-nighter enthusiasm doesn't extend to actually being a boyfriend. Sarah was crying, and Jake was looking at his phone, bored out of his mind. Mike overheard him say, "Look, Sarah, I'm not looking for anything serious. I thought we were just having fun." I felt nothing. No schadenfreude, no vindication. It was just an inevitable outcome, like a script I'd already read. Then, Dave continued, leaning forward, "It gets better. Remember that big sports drink deal she was so excited about?" I nodded. Turns out Jake massively overstated his role in it. He was a junior consultant on a tiny part of the campaign. The client found out he was using their name to pick up women and dropped his firm. The guy's a total fraud. He's probably going to have to move back in with his parents. So the shining castle she'd left me for was made of sand, and the tide was coming in. She was now humiliated, financially strained from the full rent, and utterly alone. The friends who had initially sympathized with her were starting to see the pattern, starting to remember the loyal guy she'd casually discarded. The narrative was shifting. I didn't care. I was already looking at apartments online. A small, one-bedroom place with north-facing light. A place for just me. The silence there wouldn't be a void, it would be peace. And it was a peace I had earned. The silence I had built around myself became my fortress. I found a new apartment, a clean, modern one-bedroom on the other side of the city with huge windows that let in the morning sun. I bought furniture I liked, a comfortable leather chair, a desk for my drafting table. I started running again. The rhythm of my feet on the pavement was a mantra that cleared my head. I was building a life, piece by piece, that was entirely my own. It was quiet, and it was peaceful. The attempts to breach my walls began in earnest. Phase 1, the guilt trip. It started with a text from an unknown number. I had a feeling, so I saved it as do not answer. Do not answer. Alex, it's Sarah. I know you're getting these. We shared a life for 2 years. Don't I at least deserve a conversation? You can't just ghost me like a bad Tinder date. This is cruel. I read it, my face expressionless. Cruel. The word was so telling. Her cruelty was a mistake. Mine was a calculated sin. I deleted the message. Phase 2, the nostalgia bomb. A week later, a voicemail. Her voice was soft, thick with manufactured tears. Voicemail, hey, it's me. I was cleaning out the apartment, and I found that mixed CD you made me when we first started dating. Remember that drive to the coast? We sang along to every terrible song. That was real, Alex. What we had was real. I made a huge mistake. I see that now. Jake. He's not the man I thought he was. He used me. I was so stupid. Please. I miss you. I miss us. I deleted it. She wasn't sorry for betraying me. She was sorry her affair partner had been a downgrade. She wasn't missing me. She was missing the stability I provided. The safety net I had been. Phase 3, the flying monkey. Then, her sister, Melissa, called. I almost didn't answer, but I wanted to see the playbook. Alex, it's Melissa, she began, her tone cloying and condescending. Look, I know Sarah messed up. She was led astray by that idiot. But you know how persuasive he can be. She's heartbroken. She's a mess. A real man would find it in his heart to forgive her. You need to be the bigger person here. She's learned her lesson. I held the phone, my voice calm and even. Melissa, I am being the bigger person. By staying out of her life and allowing us both to move on. My decision is final. Please do not contact me again. I hung up before she could sputter a response. I blocked her number. The audacity of them all, expecting me to clean up a mess I didn't make. Phase 4, the angry outburst. The text started again, this time from a different number. The mask was fully off. Unknown number. So that's it? You're just a coward? You won't even fight for what we had. You just run away? Unknown number. I see now. You never really loved me. You were just looking for an excuse to leave. You're pathetic. Unknown number. You're a cold, heartless bastard, Alex. I hate you. I hope you're alone forever. I didn't respond. I didn't block this number immediately. I let the messages sit there, a perfect testament to her true character. The victim had become the abuser because I refused to play my assigned role in her drama. This was the real Sarah, the one I'd been too loyal to see. Entitled, hypocritical, and vicious when denied what she wanted. The attempt stopped after that. The silence returned. It was over. Or so I thought. 3 months to the day after I'd left, I was heading home from a late session at the gym. A light drizzle was falling, glazing the city lights in a hazy shimmer. I was thinking about the design project on my desk, a challenging renovation I was excited to tackle. My life had a new center of gravity, and it was steady. As I approached my apartment building, a figure detached itself from the shadows near the entrance. My steps didn't falter, but my guard went up. I knew that silhouette. Sarah stepped under the glow of the street lamp. She looked diminished. The sharp blazer was gone, replaced by a damp, wrinkled hoodie. Her hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and her face was pale and free of makeup. She was trying to look vulnerable, but it came off as exhausted and defeated. "Alex," she said, her voice a raw whisper. "Please, we have to talk." I stopped a few feet away, my keys in my hand. I didn't invite her up. I didn't even smile. I just waited. "I get it now," she rushed on, her words tumbling out. "Everything. I was blind. I was an idiot. I threw away the best thing that ever happened to me for a fantasy. Jake was a lie. Everything he promised was a lie. He's gone. My friends, they don't get it. I'm so alone." She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering in the drizzle. She was waiting for me to offer her my jacket, to invite her in out of the rain, to be the protector I'd always been. I remained still. The silence stretched, becoming heavy and uncomfortable for her. "I'm sorry," she pleaded, genuine tears now mixing with the rain on her cheeks. "I'm so sorry. I love you. I never stopped. Can we please just start over? One coffee. That's all I'm asking." This was the moment. This was the culmination of all the quiet dignity, the restrained anger, the focused rebuilding. I looked at her, standing in the rain, a monument to her own poor choices, and I felt nothing but a distant, academic pity. She was no longer a person in my life. She was a lesson I had learned. My voice, when I finally spoke, was calm. It wasn't cold. It wasn't angry. It was final. It was the voice of a man closing a business deal that was no longer profitable. "Sarah," I said, "that chapter of my life is closed. I've moved on." She shook her head, a frantic, desperate motion. "No, don't say that. We can rewrite it. We can. I'm happy now." I continued, my tone flat and firm, cutting her off. "My life is peaceful. It's mine. And you." I paused, not for drama, but to find the most accurate word. "You are a disruption to that peace. A distraction I have no interest in entertaining." Her face crumpled. "Don't you care about me at all?" It was a child's question, a final, weak ploy. "I care about my peace," I repeated, making it my mantra. "And you are a threat to it. Our relationship is over. It has been for months. You need to accept that and move on with your life, because I already have." I saw the last flicker of hope die in her eyes. She had thrown every weapon in her arsenal: guilt, nostalgia, anger, pity, and I had simply refused to be wounded. Her power over me was gone. She was just a woman standing in the rain, and I was a man who needed to go inside and shower. "So that's it?" she whispered, the fight gone from her, leaving only a hollow shell. "That's it," I said, my voice soft but absolute. "Goodbye, Sarah." I turned, slid my key into the lock, and walked into the warm, dry lobby. I didn't look back. I heard no sob, no scream, no sound at all from the other side of the door. Just the gentle hiss of the rain. I rode the elevator up to my apartment. I took a shower. I made a cup of tea. I sat down in my leather chair and looked out at the glittering city through the rain-streaked window. The silence was profound, and it was mine. She was a ghost, and I was finally, completely free. The sequel to my life wasn't about her downfall. It was about my upgrade, and it was just getting started. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. What do you think about this story? Share it in the comments.